First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Obviously, I wish they didn't have the position they had, but I strongly support the right of people to protest and exercise their free speech rights. So I won't say I precisely welcome the protesters, but I sort of intellectually and constitutionally happily welcome the protesters.
With dozens of UF student protesters entering Emerson Hall, the final introductory session for Ben Sasse shifted to remote learning. The Republican senator from Nebraska finished up by answering a final round of questions submitted to the search chair. The question now is, will the protest change anything? Good evening, I'm Alexus Cleavenger.
And I'm Jacob Sedesse. Thanks for joining us. Ben Sasse came to UF knowing he's the only finalist to become UF's next president and already scheduled to interview with trustees on November 1st.
A new state law favors secrecy to attract a better candidate pool, but some were still surprised by the naming of only one finalist, and many were surprised by the choice of a current politician instead of a current university leader. Over 300 student protesters made their way inside the building where Ben Sasse held 3 open forums on Monday. This comes after UF selected Sasse as the only finalist candidate for its presidential search. UF College Democrats member Amelia Packham was one of those student protesters. She says she wishes there was more transparency with the selection process.
Calling on them to release more of the candidates that were considered, because we do not believe that Ben Sasse is the best representation out of the 700 people who applied for the position.
Now Sasse still faces a vote by the school's Board of Trustees and then must be confirmed by the State Board of Governors.
We'll be following this story past this week's visit, bringing you any new developments and covering the Board of Trustees meeting on November 1st. To dig deeper into all the angles, check out the growing collection of stories at WUFT.org.
Jacob, with all the fog this morning, I barely made it my way into the station.
I know, I had some trouble getting in this morning too, but I wonder if we'll have a similar situation tomorrow. WUFT's Derrah joins us now with the forecast. Derrah, what should we expect with this week's weather?
Temperatures across North Florida in the mid to upper 80s, 87 in Gainesville, 86 in Waldo, and 87 over on Archer. Right now behind me, beautiful blue skies. It looks a lot prettier than that overcast we saw this morning. It feels like 88 degrees, and as you're walking to or from class, you might notice that light 8 miles per hour breeze. Over the next couple of hours, temperatures aren't going to change a whole lot. Our overnight low tonight isn't much warmer than what it has been these past couple of days, and we're not expecting any rain either. I'll have more on that in my full forecast coming up. Back to you.
Thanks, Derrah. Floridians are still coping with the devastation of their communities after Hurricane Ian. Survivors struggling to rebuild their lives after losing their home and loved ones. At least 101 people lost their lives to the Category 4 storm, according to yesterday's running count by the Associated Press. More than 1,600 people were rescued in the aftermath, and now 491,000 former customers lack power, but many of those structures will require long-term repairs before reconnecting to the grid. And this afternoon, the Florida Department of Transportation tweeted an image of the first use of the temporary fix for the Sanibel Causeway. A convoy of more than 200 trucks, mostly utility trucks, tried the path today. Multiple sections of the causeway were washed out or buckled due to Hurricane Ian. FDOT says public access will likely be allowed ahead of schedule in as soon as 10 days. And we've seen dozens of stories on Ian's aftermath, from heart-wrenching to heartwarming. A team of UF student journalists is putting together a half-hour look at the immediate Florida impact. Hurricane Ian, the aftermath, will air this Friday at 9 p.m. here on WUFT-TV.
The Gainesville City Commission will hold a special meeting tomorrow evening to look deeper into the police department's use of K-9 teams. Terrell Bradley lost an eye to a K-9 after running from a traffic stop where a gun was seized. The footage was released by GPD in defensive tactics used to get guns off the streets. What you can't see here is the internal chatter among 5 officers later accused of misconduct, despite the internal investigation finding no violations in Bradley's arrest. 3 officers were given written warnings for taking photos of Bradley's injuries, privately sharing them, and not submitting them into evidence. 2 others exchanged messages that a police advisory member described as bragging about an aggressive style of policing.
The prosecution and defense team for the trial of Parkland shooter Nicholas Cruz began closing arguments today. Prosecutors call on the jury to sentence Cruz to the death penalty. Michael Sates began his closing argument by saying Cruz spent months planning the massacre, where 17 were murdered and another 17 were wounded.
So he was prepared. He went through, he did the research, he did the planning, and he carried it out. I submit to you that that aggravating factor of cold, calculated, and premeditated, highly premeditated, is proven beyond any reasonable doubt.
Inside a Fort Lauderdale, Florida courtroom, a jury of 7 men and 5 women will determine if Cruz will be sentenced to death or life in prison. G7 leaders met virtually today to discuss the terrifying images coming out of Ukraine, Russian missile strikes in various cities. Ukraine is pleading for more military assistance, including advanced air defense systems. NBC's Alice Barr has more from Washington.
A close call and a look of terror as this young Ukrainian narrowly avoided an explosion, demonstrating the fresh fears, with Russian missiles once again raining down on city centers across the country as the civilian death toll mounts. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pleading with President Biden and leaders of the G7 nations for more advanced air defense systems, telling the world leaders, quote, "This is an enemy not only of Ukraine, it is the enemy of each of you." President Biden pledging his unwavering commitment to hold Russia accountable and support Ukraine for as long as it takes. Russian President Vladimir Putin calling the new round of deadly missile strikes retaliation for the blast that damaged a prized bridge connecting Russia to Crimea. Ukrainians undeterred.
We will be standing up against the tyranny, and whatever happens, whatever Putin's attempts are to break us, he will fail.
Putin has been under mounting pressure amid setbacks on the battlefield and pushback against his draft, forcing some Russians to fight.
He's desperate because he made miscalculations.
Closer to home, more than a dozen U.S. air travel websites were shut down yesterday by a group of pro-Russian hackers. There's no indication any airport operations were affected, but the hack renews concerns of Russian cyber warfare. Cybersecurity officials promising the U.S. is ready to respond as the world weighs its response to escalating Russian aggression.
And over in Meadowbrook, Gainesville, residents are flooding city commissioners about concerns with ongoing flooding in their communities.
So much so that the city is finally doing something to help. Stay with us after the break to hear about potential solutions the city is working on.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome back. Flooding in certain areas of Gainesville continue to cause aggravation for so many people to the point where the topic comes up even on sunny days. The County Commission held a special meeting to discuss legacy flooding. WUFT's Allison Williams joins us now. Now, Allison, you spoke with people who are eager for solutions, correct?
Yeah, guys, I was checking out those new pumps the county put around the hills of Santa Fe neighborhood on 98th Street in North Gainesville when neighbors started telling me they aren't feeling confident about the pump's abilities yet. Commissioners held a special meeting earlier today. We found out, as for people in areas where it floods, they want solutions. Sandbags are set around Sandy and her neighbors' homes for months at a time. They're afraid to move them.
This past couple of storms, we've had rivers just running down the street into homes that you wouldn't have thought would have been affected.
After Hurricane Ian demolished Florida's southwest coast, it makes Sandy and her neighbors wary of how the next storm will affect their neighborhood, which is infamously known by the county for its floods.
And the sandbags are a short-term solution, and we just hope they'll work until a longer-term solution can be found.
This is the dam in Santa Fe Hills where water is supposed to roll into, but a neighbor told me that water has reached up to 10 feet above where I'm standing right now, flooded this deck, and rolled back into the neighborhood. And rain is forecasted later this week, which makes Meadowbrook residents want to prepare for the worst.
We don't have the infrastructure to handle the rain for 300 acres. and it just comes rushing down.
You know, I think in a lot of people's minds out here, they feel like they're taxpayers and they'd like to see some return on their tax dollars.
And we don't mind paying our fair share, and we do that to handle our own water, but for us to have to handle the water from other neighborhoods, that's where the problem comes in.
Commissioners met during a special meeting this morning to discuss the issue about flooding in local neighborhoods. They are aware of the issue but haven't reached a solution.
Oh, and this woman at the bottom of the hill in Hills of Santa Fe, I mean, she believes that she'll never be able to sell her property because it's repeatedly being flooded and like everybody knows it, so.
A quick fix may not come soon.
This problem was not fixed today and is far from over. Allison Williams, WUFT News.
Thanks, Allison. Over in West End, Gainesville residents prepare for a hearing tonight on the development of the former West End golf course. The hearing will decide if buyers can replace the abandoned course with residential and commercial spaces. West End residents like Laura Derringer are unhappy with this idea. They wish to see the former fairway remain a green space.
We really need to keep this land as a legacy for our children, our grandchildren, and their children. And it's just so important that everyone knows that the land is recreation land.
People in Newberry have been fighting the development plans since the closure of the course in 2019. Development groups proposed various plans to meet the residents' concerns to no avail. The hearing will finally be tonight at 5 p.m. at the Jack Durrance Auditorium to determine the future of the course.
Good news from Gainesville, where the tennis courts at Tom Petty Park are reopening after renovations. The tennis courts were originally built in 1970 when Tom Petty was 19 and the park near his home was called Northeast Park. The courts needed a total rebuild, so the renovations cost $158,000. Two of the new courts include pickleball striping, which can be used with portable nets. George Pryor, a frequent visitor to Tom Petty Park, says the changes are welcome.
It's been out of service for quite a long time, and it's about time they got it back in service. The thing about it is you have a combination of two sports, which will help a lot of people.
To reserve play times at the courts, visit www.playtennisgainesville.com. Speaking of celebrities, America loses an acting treasure in Angela Lansbury, whose death at age 96 was announced today by her family. Generations saw her evolve from character actress to leading lady. Many people remember her hit TV series Murder, She Wrote. A younger generation knows her voice as Mrs. Potts from Beauty and the Beast. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and in 2013, the Motion Picture Academy gave her a Lifetime Achievement Award. Her children released a statement saying she passed away overnight, dying peacefully in her sleep.
Wow, may she rest in peace. Now let's take a look at weather conditions for this week.
Derrah Getter will be telling us the forecast. Derrah?
After not seeing any rain for a while, we'll be seeing up to an inch of rain in parts of Gainesville through Friday. I'll have more on that coming up.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Beautiful blue skies behind me. It's looking a lot prettier out than that overcast we saw this morning. It feels like 88 out there, and as you're walking to or from class, you might notice a light breeze. It's about 8 miles per hour right now. Temperatures across North Florida in the mid to upper 80s, 85 in Stark, 86 in Gainesville, and 87 in Ocala. Over the next couple of hours, not going to be seeing any significant temperature changes. Tonight's low is going to be a bit normal for what we've been seeing this time of year, but a bit cooler than what we've been noticing these past couple of weeks. 70 in Gainesville, 70 in Brooker, and 71 in Waldo. As we head further south, warming up by just 1 or 2 degrees, 71 in the Villages and 72 in Bellevue. As you wake up tomorrow morning, you're going to be accompanied by some fog on your morning commute. You can see it starting to develop early Wednesday morning and into Gainesville by 6 a.m. This is Wednesday at 8 a.m. and it's made its way south to parts of Ocala as well as the Villages. Also, as you wake up tomorrow morning, you're going to be accompanied by temperatures in the 70s, 70 in Gainesville, 70 in Palatka, and 71 in Ocala. As you're planning your day tomorrow, some light and variable wind is going to clear out that fog a bit and mostly cloudy skies for lunchtime. You'll have a chance for showers later in the afternoon, and those chance for showers is going to increase later into the evening and early Thursday morning. Wednesday high 84 in Gainesville, 85 in Ocala, and 86 in Palatka. Let's take a closer look as those storms were tracking Wednesday. You can see here at 8 p.m. a cluster along I-75 into Lake City, as well as an isolated shower here in Gainesville. As the night goes on, more showers coming off the coast of the Gulf into Perry, as well as heavy rain here along the south part of Gainesville and I-75, and another heavy patch of rain here north of Gainesville and Jacksonville. More and more rain and a huge band here surrounding North Florida early Thursday morning. So you can see our rain chances are really going to ramp up late tonight on Wednesday into early Thursday morning, cooling us down into 81 on Saturday and cooler temperatures next week. Back to you.
Thanks, Derrah. The Gator basketball team continues its preseason practices this week.
In yesterday's practice, head coach Todd Golden decided to switch the rotation. We'll have that and more when we return with sports after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm Taylor Burr. A pair of SEC rivals meet up at the Swamp Saturday as the Gators host LSU. Both teams are 4-2 overall, rebuilding with first-year head coaches. This will be the 69th meeting between the two schools as Florida holds the edge with 33 wins, 32 losses, and 3 ties. Gators quarterback Anthony Richardson must play better. In the last game against Missouri, he threw 14 times for just 66 yards. Conversely, LSU is led by their quarterback Jalen Daniels, who is known for getting outside the tackles and creating a problem for the secondary. Napier plans on practicing for this all week.
So you pair that with the ability for the quarterback to break the pocket and scramble. You know, you think about statistically when you look at their team, this quarterback has made significant impact on the game with his feet, right? So they're certainly going to be a big part of our planning and, the dilemma that you have on defense. So I think it's a great question and one that we'll be working hard on this week.
The Swamp is sold out for this one, which will be at 7 p.m. game on ESPN. Moving to the hardwood, the UF men's basketball team held its 10th preseason practice yesterday. Head coach Todd Golden decided to switch things up on the court. The Gators practiced 5-on-5, in which he switched around his rotation. Usual starter Alex Fudge worked coming off the bench yesterday. Fudge was replaced by CJ Felder, who had an excellent performance in Saturday's team scrimmage. Moving to the Diamond, the UF baseball team's third fall practice and scrimmage takes place today. And by the looks of it, the Gators should have a strong season. Florida will have 6 veterans return to the Diamond to lead the team, one being Wyatt Langford, who is expected to have a huge impact this season. Last year, Langford led the SEC with 26 home runs. Meanwhile, on the mound, we'll see a whole new pitching rotation in tonight's scrimmage. Jack Leon is the man to look out for as he returns to the field tonight. He missed most of his high school senior season due to an injury, and the Gators are currently on the field. Lastly, in Major League Baseball, the playoffs continue today as the division series gets underway. First off, the Phillies beat the Braves 7-6. The Mariners are up 6-3 over the Astros in the 4th. The Dodgers take on the Padres at 9:37 p.m. tonight. And lastly, the only non-divisional matchup will be the Yankees versus the Guardians. That starts at 7:37 in the Bronx tonight.
It's no secret that Hurricane Ian has affected families across the state, but the storm took a toll on local food banks as well. Every Tuesday, Williams Temple Church of God in Christ partners with Community Hospice to host a food bank. But the effort, dubbed as the Big Give by leaders, has not been the same for 2 weeks. Medical resources typically come to the bank to administer no-cost vaccines and screenings. Since the hurricane, medical services like UF Health and Humana have not returned because of scheduling issues. The food bank is at the corner of Northwest 5th Avenue and Northwest 7th Street every Tuesday. Next Tuesday, Feathers says medical resources should be there and ready to help by 10 a.m.
Before we go, let's have one last check on the weather.
Mostly cloudy skies this evening with the light breeze picking up later on tonight and patchy fog also developing later on tonight into early tomorrow morning. The rest of this week, a 40% chance for rain Wednesday, 60% chance for Thursday, but that rain's going to cool us off well into next week with overnight lows back into the 50s and 60s. Back to you.
Thanks, Derrah. BBC World News is next, and the PBS News Hour is coming up at 7.
But remember, your Florida news is always on at WUFT.org. Have a great night.